In this video, I want to introduce you to what are constants, what are variables, some other data types, and some basic syntax. You'll note that we are continuing our lesson from the previous one, and in this I'm going to define what constants are and what are variables. So you'll note that I have the keyword let followed by a value for A and a value for B, and you'll also note I have a variable C listed below that, which is listed here with the var keyword. The let keyword is used to define a constant, and a var keyword is used to define a variable. The difference between the two is that a constant cannot change and a variable can change over time. So remember, constant can't change, a variable can change. If I try to increment a to a plus 1, you'll note I will get an error that tells me that the let keyword is for a constant. So I cannot change the value of a in this instance. Now, if I move to the variable, if I want to change the value for c, I can do that by saying c equals, and let's increment it by 1, so c plus 1. And notice on the right hand side, it will give me a value of 66 as listed here. So a variable can change over time given that we are able to add 1 to it. Now let's quickly discuss some other data types within Swift. There are in fact 3 data types that we can talk about. There's the integer, there's something called double, which allows for decimal points, and we have strings. We have covered integers and strings so far. We have looked at where a equals 40 was a integer, and strings like hello. These have already been discussed in some detail. Let's look at how we can set a double, which would then include a decimal point. So to do that, I type in var price double. So notice I've got capitals here, and let's call it 10.99. Let's see if we can change this price of this double. Notice that we have a decimal point in there, and let's look at price times 4, price of this double multiplied by 4, and notice that it has calculated that to be 4 times the 10.99. So mathematical operations are very easy to do when we have a double as well as an integer. We have already discussed concatenation of 2 strings, and we've also shown how to include an integer within a string. Now let's move on to some other data types, and let's talk about arrays. Arrays are ordered collections of values. Let's define a number array. So we do that by typing in var number array, and let's put a collection of numbers, square brackets, and I type in a set of numbers, and these numbers would be separated by a comma, and then I close it with a square bracket again. Another data type that I quickly want to tell you about is called sets, and sets are unordered lists of unique values. We won't be covering that now, but the main thing I want to cover right now is dictionaries. Dictionaries are a group or a collection of different things. That could be numbers, integers, strings, doubles, whatever you want, because it's a dictionary, so a group of information that's grouped together. So we want to use an example. So I want to create a simple example for a dictionary. To do that, I need to type in the word var and then a dictionary name, and we'll include a collection of different things. In this case, we'll include a name, an age, and a gender. Dictionaries are simply an unordered collection of key value associations. An unordered collection of key value associations, things that have some association together. So let's define a dictionary right now. So I type in var my dictionary, and let's put in a name. So square bracket, I type in name, and I put in the name Sabah. I can put in an age of 20, and I put in also a gender, which is female. So I do that by typing in gender in quotes and equals female. And let's look at what that gives us. And hopefully all is okay and there are no errors in this line. I have noticed that there is an error. I've included an equal to sign when it should be a colon. So let's correct that. So now that's a colon in there and the errors are gone. Notice on the right hand side, it has displayed the information properly. There are a number of operations I can do on the dictionary and on the number array. So let's print the number array first. So I do that by typing in print number array, and that should give us the number array listed on the right hand side. And once that's done, I can print the dictionary, and that should also give us the correct settings on the right hand side. Notice how there is a \n at the end. Let's ignore that for now. We'll cover that in another lesson. The import I want to explain quickly. If you have any SDK or library that you need to import, you type in import and then that library or SDK will then be present and available to you in your code. There are a number of libraries and SDKs that you may want to use. You do this by typing in the import word followed by the name of the library or the SDK, and that will be present in your code. I want to cover commenting in this lesson. Commenting is when you may have multiple people working on some code and you need to put in a comment which is not part of the code, but it's just for someone to know. You do this by entering in a double / and then you type in a comment. In this case, I want to write that the let A and let B are constants, so I can do that by typing in the word constants after the double \. So let's do that right now. Constants will then be included in the code, but not read by Swift because it is a comment and it's more for human reading rather than for computer programming. I also want to do something here which types in a double comment for variables. So I can do that by typing in variables here, and that would make a comment variables here. Another commenting option is when you want to hide or keep a certain portion of code out of the Swift programming to recognize that code. So you put that with a ****, which will then prevent that code being read by Swift and will be basically only available for human reading. When you are happy with the code, you can then remove the commenting options, and this is where you can put long comments and things like that as well. Swift happens to be case sensitive, so string 1 with a lowercase s and string 1 with a capital S are two different constants. So string 1 with a lowercase s is hello, and string 2 can be bye, I am leaving. And those would be classified as two separate constants. So understand, case sensitivity is really important in Swift. Another thing when you may be familiar with Objective-C, for example, is that these semicolons are no longer included in Swift. So you don't have to use those semicolons anymore because Swift understands that without the semicolons. Although if you do end up using semicolons, Swift will simply ignore it. So if you are familiar with Objective-C and are already used to entering in semicolons, don't despair. You simply don't have to do it in Swift. So use it at your leisure. If you want to include it, that's fine. Swift will ignore it. So it will save you a lot of hassle by slowly getting used to the fact that you don't need to include semicolons. In this video, you've learned about constants and variables. We've looked at the case sensitivity. We've looked at arrays. We've looked at dictionaries. We've looked at the commenting, so you understand an overview of this. In the next videos, we'll delve into more specific details.